So please help yourself to the refreshments. I'm really pleased that you all came today. The parent organization is something that is your right as a parent to have in your public school district. It is your right to have an organization that speaks on behalf of all students in the district who have special needs. So your involvement really is one of advocacy for all students. Of course, as a parent of a child with special needs myself, there's always a particular interest area that I have that I guess I could say is my agenda. I think we all bring our own agenda to the table, but with a varied mix of ideas and opinions and thoughts, I think collectively we could really do a lot to empower our students and make sure that they are getting the fullest education possible, and that they have access to the curriculum, and that if there are obstacles or barriers, that we can identify them and help alleviate them. So today we have the team chairs from the school district here, and they'll be here to mingle with you, and you can ask specific questions. If there was ever a question in a team meeting that maybe you didn't feel comfortable asking and you want to ask privately, the team chairs are here. I also have some resources on the table, and I think the most informative packet are the parents' notice of the procedural safeguards. It's kind of a lengthy packet, but if you actually sit through and read that packet, there is an enormous amount of information in there that you may not have known about in the past. And it really can link you to a lot of ideas and thoughts to really help maximize what's being offered in your child's IEP. So it's something to really become familiar with. We have all team chairs here from the preschool all the way up to the high school. And so I always say start with the end in mind. And that is, before you know it, our little guys, our kiddos at the younger level will be getting ready to get into a graduation line. And so what happens after formal education? What happens with linking our kids into the community so that way they can access all the benefits and rewards that other graduates have access to? So whether that means that you envision your child going on to higher education, then how can we at the high school help link your child with colleges and programs that have learning centers for students with disabilities? And to really explain that an IEP does not go on to the college setting, but that a 504 will follow your child to the college setting. And so always starting kind of with the end in mind. So with that said, I just would like to kind of talk today about any thoughts, any ideas, any topics that you might want to learn more about or have a lecture series on. Something that you, again, can be your own agenda, because I know I certainly have mine when I'm participating with my pack. And we can see what the rest of the group thinks.
Yes. Well, I have something I would like to bring up.
Sure.
I have I started my own foundation. It's called Space and Thrive. I'm doing a fellowship. I was awarded a fellowship in Boston with the Institute for Community Inclusion, and I'm working on inclusive playgrounds, but not the kind of inclusive playgrounds which are being built for hundreds of thousands of dollars, where like the children like my daughter in wheelchairs still can really play on, and there's like tic-tac-toes and things for children with disabilities left, or musical instruments which are not being really, like played with or not really usable. or broken very easily. So what I'm trying to do is to show that we don't need this, this big playgrounds. Like often we don't have that money. It's like liability. Like in Millville, I'm on the committee in Millville, but the playground committee for the school, and it's just I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, it's just about contracts, and and then I saw like little design made by a company, of all the expensive equipment, and I already saw it. I'm like, if this is going to be built, then children with disabilities, will not really be able to play. There was talk about one accessible equipment, and like it's not even worth, worth this, like it's not even by law just say there's like one piece of accessible equipment, and but it's really hard for people to even, and if I can say this in this round, because I don't want to get anybody, upset. We still have to be careful, how we approach people, how we make people understand, that it's not that children with disabilities are not your threat, because this is like being perceived often. They did not even let me talk. And they said, like, if you build the playground you want to build, then the children without disabilities will miss out. They didn't even listen to what I had to say. And like, I was sad that, I'm the only mom with a child with a disability in the round, and I was like perceived as I'm doing this for my daughter. I'm not doing this just for my daughter. So what I'm seeing is that we can go back, we can do something simple. I'm preparing right now with the institute in Boston. My study, it will probably end like in June, so I hope I have to hurry up. The pieces together. But we can do it as a community. We don't need $100,000s of dollars. You can do like a maze thing, like imagine a maze, right? You can start with just painting some lines on the ground. This is what I'm doing with my daughters every week when the rain washes down our maze, which we do with chalk. But it's so imaginative, and we're doing like things where they can like imaginary pick up from the floor, and they're playing for hours. And it's so inclusive. But you can go on and build it, like a little bit out more. The more money you have, you can make little ramps. You can do things. You can do so many things with that, where children can come together, and you don't really have that, I think inclusion is about our surrounding, and it's about our environment. If we create an environment, then children without disabilities will not see, really the ability or disability. It's the surrounding and the designed environment which creates the barriers. And of course, there are like different kinds of disabilities. I don't want to say like, oh, it will be easy and you can integrate everybody as, so easily. But there are ways, and, it's a little bit, I don't think enough time to really explain my ideas, but I would like to put it out there that I have something, I would like to discuss that. I would like to introduce that to the school. I talked to another mom with a child without a disability who loves that ideas too, and we would like to sit down in the summer and maybe create something and a proposal. I'm also thinking integrating a school garden where there's a garden club in the school. Everybody can participate. It can be part of a play area where things are being, planted, and the garden club is taking care of that. Maybe there's some, veggies and things like that growing. Garden club can make, once the harvest time is there, can make a lunch for the children. People can, children should sign up for the lunch. So I think something integrative, and where everybody is just owns it and is part of it. And I think there's so many things that children will learn from it, which a metal playground you would never even give to them. And we have to make everybody understand that it's children with disabilities are not a threat, they are a blessing for everybody else. When I see what my daughter, what other children with disabilities are bringing to this world, how they affect others, it's, you cannot buy that, you cannot teach that. And, I have a dance class, We Dance it's called, it's for children with and without disabilities, because there's not much going on out there for children with disabilities at all. But for both, I have a daughter with and one without a disability, and I cannot bring them together because, my daughter with a disability will not be accepted, in her ballet school. And when Vivian joined power soccer, Lara was just not even able to enter the ground. I'm like, why can't we do things together, right? And so We Dance is where they can bring friends, siblings, I'm not charging for that. And I had people, parents of children without disabilities come and say what an effect it had on their children. The sights they see in their children, they haven't seen before. very compassionate side where they are able to explore that, you know, and this is just something which will make our community, our world better. We need that right now. We don't need more of entitlement, and you know, like building those big playgrounds means, oh, you know, like another thing we're just getting, we don't have to work for, we don't have to take care, you know, we're just getting it, right? $1 million playground. I was asked to support a playground in Connecticut. They already have $800,000. I think they need more to build one playground. This is insane. In a year or two, things will be broken. They will not be replaced because there will be not that money to, to replace them. I'm like, do we really need that? There will be a zip line for children with disabilities. That's great. You know, like, do we need that? You know, what do we really need? And I think sometimes we forget what we really need and what we want. You know, and so I was speaking a lot, but I hope that you know the idea.
And how do you see the CPAC being able to support?
Well, that's my question. Like, how can the CPAC support ideas like that? Like I think you know, everybody. I hope everybody agrees that that's something needed. Where we need, where we create spaces where children can engage, you know, without disability. So, how can the CPAC support ideas like that? That's my question.
Okay. Well, I guess that goes out to other parents who are here at the table, because the CPAC really is run and organized and driven by other parents. And so when we say how can the CPAC help, it's how can parents help parents get their agenda pushed forward, so that way people who are in the decision-making seats can hear our collective voice under the umbrella of the CPAC, which is that advocacy group.
So where I see it is like really, I can do the proposal and things, but then I really need that support from parents, and maybe parents with children with disabilities. You maybe know other parents with children with disabilities. Just get them together. Maybe do a signing sheet. Oh yes, we would like that. And also engage with your friends of children without disabilities. Explain that to them and say, listen, this is something really good. You know, like this will help all our children, you know, to connect, to grow, to learn from each other. Can you please, would you support that, right? And I think the group, you know, supporters, which will say, you know, like we may not opt for that, you know, playground which will divide us, but you would rather like something to have something like that. You know, if you would like it, you know, like of course, you know, like you have to see what at the end I would propose, right?
An inclusionary playground.
Yeah, but then you know, I think the support will be very important to say like I'm not the only one, or the two moms have an idea, you know, but if people see it and like it, then as a group, maybe present it and say this is really what we need.
Okay.
And it will be way less expensive.
And I love that you brought in that it's, you know, you are a parent of a special needs child, and it's a parent of, you know, your mainstream child that are working together, because that inclusion piece is so important.
Yeah.
And it's such a good way to look at it.
Are there any that someone can go look at or take pictures of? Are there any built, any playgrounds that have been built?
The way I want them.
Or similar to the way, you know,
There is like, you can look, it's not perfect, but there's, when you go to Roger Williams Park in Providence, there's a boundless playground outside, which was built, I think, in the 90s or something. It has ramps, you know, Vivian already thinks it's great, she can go up the ramp, but, you know, like that's pretty much what she can do. There's swings, which are broken, the harnesses were broken, so they were just taken off. There's a seesaw. I don't know if you know those big things, which I don't even know if it ever moved, but there's a ramp up to it, which has at the end a step of about 4 inches. So, you know, like not really accessible. I don't know if it dropped down. So pretty much everything, the only thing which is left is really she can go up and down the ramps, but it's an accessible playground. Inside the zoo, they made a new playground. They have a treehouse, which, you know, is fully accessible. You know, it has a wide ramp. She can go up there. They have a wheelchair swing, which the wheelchair can go up, and it actually works. Spalding Hospital made also they put in a wheelchair swing in there for $1 million playground, and they sized it wrong. When I put her in the power chair on, I could not close it. So they did not really think maybe about power chairs. I don't know. Maybe they only looked at manual wheelchairs, but I could not close it. The one in Roger Williams Park actually works. They have a tunnel. They actually approached me. They didn't know what I'm doing, but they approached me, seeing me and Vivian there, and said like, "How did it work for you?" And I'm like, "Well, the tunnel, because they asked about the tunnel. Like, it was great. She was able." And I said, "Thank goodness, because we spent so much time to really try to size it so children will just can ride through this." So they were really like thinking about things. They have like little. They do like scavenger hunts, which I had like also. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have so many ideas. I have, like, let me read my mind. So scavenger hunts there where they can just pick up like the hunt, and they go around in the playground, search for trees or things like that. They have like many of those things, but it's like the grass is not the best because they have the grassy area. So my daughter can drive over it, but a child in a walker or in a manual wheelchair would have a problem doing that. But there's like many ideas, so you can just look at both playgrounds. Like you will see the difference, how much more inclusive the one inside the zoo is and the one outside. So that's already like I think, a step in the right direction.
It's nice to be able to see something.
Yeah.
It's great.
How about some other ideas that the CPAC might be able to kind of rally around, or a lecture series or topics that you'd like to learn more about?
Do you feel like you know the step that are clear on the process of special education in terms of all the timelines and when testing is done and why testing is done and all of that? Do you guys feel like you have a clear picture of that, or is that something that you kind of just go along with when you get a call from us or when we bug you? So maybe something like that.
Okay.
Just informative. Here are the steps kind of session.
Right, the process. Okay. Any other, if there was a lecture series, any topics that you feel as though would help you as a parent with perhaps the challenges that you face at home having a child with special needs?
Well, I have some ideas. I do have ideas, but I don't want to spoke so long. So if anybody. So my daughter sometimes comes home, right, and says, she seems to be well integrated, and I'm being told that I see like everybody loves her, like everybody knows her name, but sometimes she comes home and she says, "Mommy, nobody really plays with me." So there is something, she feels because she's in a wheelchair, so she cannot really engage everything the right way. I had a meeting yesterday with the school, and I said that's what she says, that when she asks children, to play with her, they say they're just playing with somebody else. And I asked her how often does it happen, and she's like, well, sometimes it works. She said most time it doesn't. What Kara says, she does not see that much, but she also sees, because Vivian has one best friend that she is really focused on her. And sometimes Vivian also closes up a little bit because she is so focused on one girl, so that maybe a double thing going on. But maybe something about how do we support the children, them too, to maybe, inclusion both ways, because the child itself, can separate itself too, even not knowing it, So, something like psychologically, how do we help our children psychologically? Because we're not psychologists, right? And there's so much we have to be. We have to be doctors, we have to be advocates, we have to be lawyers, we have to be everything. And sometimes it's really hard to, the emotional piece, how do we help her if she's getting home and, it's really sad, how do we support her? So I think maybe some psychology theories to support their problems, or vice versa. She has I think a few problems right now with her one-on-one. I think there's a little power fight going on.
Oh, sure.
Who said what? She said, he said.
Yeah.
And so how? Because I'm trying to teach her self-advocacy and say what you feel, say what you think. Make your because I will not be there. I don't know. I can be driven over by a car tomorrow. I cannot always rescue her, right? So I need to tell her you have to stand up for yourself, and she has to do that even more the older she will get. She will not be the child in the wheelchair forever. Oh, this poor child. She doesn't even want that, right? But at some point, she will be just this person in the shadow, right? In this wheelchair, nobody will really see because she's a grown-up. That's the truth. You're not being seen. So I'm telling her, I'm trying to teach her, you have to stand up for yourself, but then when she says something, then it's like, no, you said that. It doesn't help, you know, the adult says, you know, you said that, and she said, no, but I said this, you know, like I didn't mean this. So, you know, like something like how do we support her, or how do we talk to the aides, you know, if there is something going on to make them understand, you know, maybe there is, you know, maybe we need to be a little bit more careful how we, or how you interact and how you say something, because this adult power game has to maybe be a little bit different with a child who needs to learn self-advocacy. So if she's trying, because I'm telling her, and then she's being taught back, you know, well, no, you have, you know, like, I'm the adult, right? Then it's kind of counterproductive. So I think things like that would help, maybe, like how can we resolve things like that, you know, because also she cannot come every time she thinks, because then I went to school because there was something going on, and now every time there's like a little misunderstanding, she comes, Mommy, can you go and talk to them? I'm like, well, that's not the way it's, you know. So I think things like that, you know, like the emotional, the people, like the interactional part, I think that would be helpful to.
Yeah,
to
the
hear
social and the emotional component of being a child with a disability, and the social emotional component of being a parent of a
Exactly.
child with a disability.
To add to that though, what she was saying, my son he has a disability, but you can't see it. This is the trouble I had. He's doing really well now, but he had a fear of coming to school. But it was so hard to get people who were trying to support him to, not want to say believe it, but really see what you see as a parent, and to speak to what she's saying. The support, I believe they want to support, but unless you can come up with great examples, like when you have a child that you can see what they're having trouble with if they are in a wheelchair, that is a tough thing in itself, but at least people can see it. And not that that doesn't justify makes it any less, but trying to show people that you're, you know, when you're the parent, you are everything, like she said. My son too, he's 14 now, so I had to make him more of an advocate for himself. In the beginning, when he was having a lot of trouble, me and his mom would come in and we work with the staff, and we're the advocate. He'd say to me, well, Dad, you gotta say this, you gotta tell them. But now he's older, I said, what you say is more effective than anything I can say. They're gonna hear you more now. But it took that maturity level, and his maturity level has helped him improve. But more like she was saying, it's so hard when nobody else can see what the child is feeling. They weren't there at night where he's scared to go to school the next day and he's not sleeping. And you say it, but unless you're the parent and you're living it, you can't, and I understand from that point, because I was the first guy to say to my son, you're going to school, you're going. But then when you realize he has a disability that he needs some help with to get through, you end up coming to terms with it, and then you're frustrated because the people that are looking at you, because it's a rare thing or it's not a high number thing, they don't want to say don't believe it, but you really have to prove it to them. And that would be something if we could, some type of support, some type of more learning on how to communicate that to the support group that's working with your child. So not that you want them to believe them and coddle them, but at the same time, believe them to the point to find out what works, get to the bottom of it. We finally did. There was a certain formula that everybody came to, and it's working with him along with his maturity. At 11 years old, he didn't understand why he was scared of school, or 10. But at 14, he knows what he has now. He knows he has to cope. And that coping skill isn't like the same for us. Like, when you go to a job interview, you get nervous, but you know that you can cope with it. When you have a disability, especially as a child, and you don't understand why you're scared. The feeling used to use the terminology is, I'm scared. But he's not scared like somebody's going to hurt him. He's just got that fear and he doesn't understand why. And that, if we could figure out a way to make sure that whoever supports children like that, keep educating them or get together as groups to get them to try to understand it. But like I said, unless you're the parent, you won't have the same passion about it. Even if you're passionate about your job. It's like I use a mechanic. The mechanic will always fix his car just a tiny bit better than he fixes his customer's car to a point. And that kind of thing. So just more on, like she was saying, any type of way we can help advocate, get together, learn more about supporting the emotional piece, especially if you can't see the physical side.
Right.
Like I always wish my kid walked around in a body cast, because then they would see what it is. Because he looks fine, except for that one little thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's so hard. I'm always feeling for the parents. And before I had a child with disability, I didn't really get that. You just to the fullest. I'm always was a compassionate person, but I did not really get it fully. And I'm just seeing it, even like children with autism, like in my school, I'm pretty sure like I have a memory of a child who was like laying on the floor in front of the door and the teacher was just pulling the door open and pulling the child aside. And I was like thinking back then, when I was like whatever, 15, 16, I don't know, that's weird, you know, but everybody just thought like, oh, this child is bad, right? Like, why is this child behaving like this? But I did not like that the teacher just, you know, like cleaned the floor with this child, but looking back on it, this child may have had autism, you know, behavioral disorders, you know, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, like how was this child treated, right? But it's what you say, I'm like, oh, you know, like my daughter has the wheelchair, I'm not happy about it, but you know, like people can see,
They see
you
it,
know.
and again, it's probably harder than what my son's doing, but not being able to see it is the hardest part, 'cause especially if it's not big.
And you're being judged probably all the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's been tough. It's been a rough ride because everybody has their challenges. But you just got to stay the course. You got to advocate for your child all the way through, to the point of almost sometimes going against the support. Like I said, to get them to see. Like you'll have a aha moment where you'll give them an example. You'll push the child to the limit where they'll have to see. And all of a sudden, once somebody else sees, then everybody comes to help. But until they're all, like you said, it's hard to see if you're not there. Like I was the same way. I would be like, oh, well, you're going. You got to go to school. I didn't understand. I was like, he just doesn't want to go or whatever. But until you believe it and see it, it's the toughest thing. You know?
And the social and emotional part is like unfortunately like under like taken care of, because we are so, especially parents with special needs, we're like constantly taking care. Like I'm vegan. It's like therapy is like 2 or 3 times a week. We're going to Boston. We're going here. We're going everywhere. Right? So you're trying to keep them healthy, keep them, you know, like moving and, you know, keep their health up. And we're tired too. And I see like with so many parents, you know, like there's like no more energy left to do something else. Even like with my dance class, it's so, I didn't think when I started that the hardest part would be to get the parents in. The children love it, but the parents sometimes they just, you know, they just come or, you know, not come, and then it's even hard to keep the class going. And I'm like busy too, so I don't really have time to advertise. It's great, you know, I have to do, you know, like more of that. But I'm like, this is so important for your children, you know, this inclusion part, and they need that, you know, the children just like more, you know, they just like, they're there, they love it, they want it, you know, and the parents just sometimes feel too tired too to come, you know, and I'm like, I understand it's hard, you know, but so sometimes even the parents don't understand the importance of the social and emotional. And I think a lot of other problems would also go away if the children would feel better, you know, like psychologically, right?
And I would agree that being the parent of a child with special needs, you have what I call many competing priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Many competing priorities. And as the director of special education, one of my priorities as a director, as an administrator, is to be able to build and strengthen the CPAC for our school community. And what I found was that in the past, there had been a CPAC, it met in the evening, and turnout was low to none. And I thought about that in my own home. Having a child with special needs in the evening, my child is spent. He's used all his energy to get through the school day, and in the evening, I need to be there because of routine and consistency. So for me to attend a meeting in the evening in my family is a bit of a competing priority. So I just wanted to ask all of you, for really building up this CPAC for our school community, is this time of day work for most of you? Is this a time where you could, you know, we could build it into our school day, and it would be able to be something that you would be able to attend? Do you think this time works, or
At the moment, yes.
at the moment? How
I
about
like earlier.
you like earlier? Yeah.
Just because I'm a working mom.
So pre-work, like an early
Yeah,
morning.
I mean, even just cutting into a little bit of the workday is fine, but this is like, I would take a half day.
Oh,
Which I
okay.
don't mind, you know, if it's not like every week.
Okay. Right.
Right at drop-off time or when the bus
Yeah.
goes, like right early,
Yeah,
first thing in the
like
morning.
8 to 9:30, I don't know, that's just me though.
I too am a working mom, so a little bit early would be good, but then I'm like, I can only drop off my child
Yeah.
by 7:30.
Right.
I can't
Right.
get in, I can't leave anywhere until 7:30.
Do you prefer the daytime to the evening, or?
I'm either way.
Oh,
Flexible.
yeah, I'll be flexible, so.
Flexible.
Yeah.
Flexible.
Yeah, for me this would work
Sort
too.
of.
Okay, so I had 3
I could
kids.
see like from
Yeah,
children,
that's
because you're dropping off at 7:30? Yeah, because they're like, like I mostly have help, but if there are other parents like my kids, the bus is coming 8:30.
Yes,
So that's what I
exactly.
mean, like for some parents it may be a challenge
Right.
to do it 8:30 because the bus comes.
And maybe we could come up with a schedule
Middle school.
that alternates between a morning meeting and an evening meeting. So if you couldn't make the morning, at least perhaps the following month you
Yeah.
could make the evening meeting. That's an idea. The other idea that I've seen happen is some CPACs will offer for younger children to be able to come to the meeting and maybe have a room set up where there might be some activities, and parents will bring a snack. The CPAC usually doesn't provide the food because who's gluten free, who has an allergy, but if the parent provided a snack for their child, some classrooms do the party in the bag, where you have the little treats and stuff in the bag for your child. We might be able to do something like that too, so that way in the evening you're not wondering, what do I do with my children? And it could be something that's more recreational for them. So I just want you to know, I'm offering that flexibility, so that way we can really establish the CPAC and make it meaningful and accessible to as many parents as possible. I do like that idea of that social emotional series and kind of tapping into some topics that might be beneficial to even help support us as parents. What do we do when we are feeling that we're being torn in all those directions, and we know our patients are wearing thin and it's been a long day, and it's the holidays, and either you're hosting and you're having a lot of people come in, or you're going somewhere and you're wondering about, how is my child going to be able to cope and manage in this setting. I think as parents with our children with special needs, we have a lot of common concerns, and especially that idea of that advocacy piece, so we're not judged or blamed or thought of as suspect. Well, why won't he come to school? Like, just get him on the bus, right?
Exactly.
Just, as Nike says, just do it. And if it was only that easy. I know with my own child, I've been, in the supermarket when my Noah was younger, and I would have him in the little seat, and he'd be really acting up, wanting to crawl out and this and that, and parents looking at me like, I was a poor mom and I couldn't manage my child. And I always felt like wearing that T-shirt that said, my child has autism, back off. And the other day, do you know, I was on a website and some other mom did it. I could have been making some money, It's so funny when you have that idea and somebody else has the same idea and they run with it. So I like that idea. So, any thoughts? Any other thoughts?
I have I don't know if this is a specific to me thing. I'm a working mom and I'm not as involved as I should be, I know. But educating people, or us, and then somehow people of our school systems, what different types of disabilities do the children have that the teachers face, and possibly introducing all the things the poor teachers have to deal with every day. It's not just like I come to school, I teach, and it's an easy thing. And it's difficult, and I admire what the teachers are doing to help our children, but I don't think a lot of parents get it. And I just...
How do they do it? I don't know. Sometimes, I only have 2. And I'm like, right? And they have a classroom of maybe 8, and how do they do it? If you're in a sub-separate, you have 8 or less. If you're in inclusion, you could have, 15, 16, 20-something kids in a classroom. How do they do it? Yeah, 27?
Last year I had 27, and of the 27, I think 13 of them had special needs.
It's a lot.
Yes. Imagine just having, 13, children over your house for a party, a birthday party,
With all separate needs.
with all separate needs.
Yeah.
How do you pull that miracle off? I don't know.
A lot of staff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of hands, a lot of hands.
When
Yeah.
you touch on that, I think, talking at IEP meetings too, when you talk about the social part and you know, you say, yes, they do have stuff in school, but do they see any of them outside the school?
That's
And a
right.
lot of times it's no,
That's right.
that it doesn't carry over, or it's hard to plan something or
Right.
something, and, you know, it's sad when you hear that, because
That's right.
you want to be able to say that, yes, they,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they do get invited over, they go to play, they, you know, or they're the ones that are left out of the birthday parties, or
That's
the little
right.
things that they do, and
That's
it's,
right.
because people don't know how to deal.
And how do you solve that? Because I always say that's when you really need to be worried, when the phone stops ringing, as your child gets older, when the phone stops ringing for the play dates or the get-togethers, or the birthday invitations are not coming in, and you're hearing that there was a party and your child was left out, you know, how do you cope with that as a parent, and how do you help support your child who knows they were not invited to the party? That's real tough stuff. For any child, but in particular for a child with special needs. Oh, sure. When my son was much younger, a very good friend said to me, I don't know if we're going to be able to have him next time. That's a very good friend of mine. I really don't know if we'll be able to have him back next time.
We had the same
Gotcha.
thing happen, we had,
Yeah, it's tough
best
stuff.
friends were saying, you know, like, oh, we're, you know, just so you know, we just want to let you know we're not going to invite your daughter because we made, like, whatever, they made the party at a climbing place or something, you know. And they said, oh, we'll do something separate, which never happened, you know. And then, you know, like, I understand both sides, you know, like, if your daughter, you know, like, I don't know if she wanted, you know, to have it at a climbing place, but it's, you know, like, she has the right, you know, for her
She
child,
has
you know,
the-
but then just maybe asking, you know, do you think you would mind to, like, just be there but not being able to climb, or just something, you know, trying to
Right,
do something, you know, but just saying we're not going to invite you, you know.
right.
It's, you know,
That's a big difference.
it's just, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
you're not included.
And I get that people have a hard time, you know, but I really just like noticed that even friends don't get it, you know, when best of my friends who like were there like since she was born, since she got diagnosed, and you know saying, oh, so maybe we can meet and the kids can just ride bicycles. She can't ride a bicycle. I mean, no, I cannot just sit down and chat because I always have to look after her, like, or whatever. You know, like at this point, like I cannot just sit there because she has an exercise bike now, right? But she cannot move it herself, you know. So no, I cannot just put her on the bike and start chatting, you know. So they just still don't get it, you know. My daughter had a hip surgery last year. They cut both of her like thigh bones completely through. They had to reshape the things, and one my best friend said like, are you sure this needs to be done? Did you talk to a doctor about it? And I'm like, no, the local vet is doing it. It's so fun, right? People don't. This is like so scary that people who like are with you still don't
Yeah.
get it, you know. And like, I'm supposed to be mad at them? Like,
Right.
no, you're like, but it's just like.
Yeah.
Like, but it's almost like insulting for us parents, you know, because we're not sleeping, right? We're doing this like all day, night, and they're like, did you ask a doctor? Like, do you really have to?
And I think some parents are afraid to ask the parents of special needs
Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
what kind of things can I do so that your child could come to my party, or
Yeah.
you know, maybe
Yeah.
you would need to be there, or you know, we need to make sure the noise level.
Yeah.
Well, with kids that's hard, but you know, something.
Yeah.
How can we make it? I think some parents are really scared to ask.
Yeah, but that's why I'm doing my, you know, like my Spaces to Thrive, where I'm trying to get those people together and the families, because I think once they get together, or the playgrounds, right, and they start talking to each other, they will see like, oh, she's just a normal human being, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I have a friend whose son is autistic, and my other friend who has been exposed to that a lot. We all went to high school together, we're all great friends, and I'm kind of the go-between. And I had actually given my friend's son speech therapy when he was really little, and we would get together for play dates, and sometimes they would get together without me, and my friend who didn't have a lot of experience with autism would be so nervous about, well, I don't know how to tell my children to react to him, or I don't know how they should, or I said, will you ask her? Like, you've been friends with her forever, just ask her. She goes, well, I don't want to offend her. You're not going to offend her, she'll probably be thrilled. You know,
And you can ask, is it okay to ask, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling people, you know, like if they sometimes say, oh, my daughter would like to speak, you know?
Certainly, certainly. So what I have over on the table is the guide for the Special Education Parent Advisory Councils. The last time the department put an advisory out was 2010. So this is the most current advisory. Jen has the packet, and what we could do is take down perhaps some email addresses, Jen, and if you would like us to send you the link so you could review it, so you could really see what really are the key components of operating an effective PAC. It's maybe 20 pages, has some really great resources, has some really great information, and it probably would be something worth your while to become familiar with. In the PAC, there are actually roles, like a president, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer. So there are roles that would need to be fulfilled. There would be a calendar that would need to be established. So perhaps another thing that we could do is maybe a group blog or chat for when we think we might want to come together again to maybe put some real firm things in place so we would know where do we go from here. I certainly think we have some ideas, and I think we have kids at all different disabilities that of what I know of you. So I think it's a real diverse group that we could really add a lot of conversation out there for the rest of the parents who may not have been able to come today but might be interested in coming into an evening session. So is there any, we have until 11 o'clock. We have these refreshments, there's coffee, there's things on the table, there's handouts. And if you'd like to give Jen your email address, we'll start a list serve kind of thing. So that way we can all kind of be on the same page as to what might happen next, where do we go from here. But I think it's important for everybody who would like to at least be an active member with a role to be familiar with this document so you can really understand what the responsibilities are. Currently, the CPAC, as it stands right now, has, I think, about $1,400 in an account, Jen.
Something like that.
Yeah, there's about $1,400 in an account. So it gives us some startup money if we wanted to have a lecture series, if we wanted to do a coffee hour for families, depending on where we want to go from here. There is some startup money. And one of the things that CPAC, like most parent organizations, are always having to do is think of fundraising, because speakers come in and some speakers will donate time, other speakers, it's what they do, so they require payment. And then of course there are organizations like the Federation that will send speakers in and give us a lot of resources. So it's just something to think about. So the pad's going around. I had said to many of you when you were coming in that we were filming, and that if anybody does not want to be filmed, just to let us know so that way afterwards when we look at it we can make sure that you weren't shot for confidentiality reasons, and we'll go from there. Okay, so please enjoy.